Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the live video podcast where we try and have a deeper connection. Don't always succeed, but we do try to have a deeper conversation about the films we're watching today. And today, we got a banger of a show. We're going to be talking about Rebel Ridge. So let's get into it. That's right, everyone. We are going to be talking about Rebel Ridge, but you know what else is probably going to come up? It might have been a clue. If you look at the thumbnail of the piece, we'll also be talking, I suspect, First Blood from 1982. Another star turn, or another remarkable star turn from a much younger Sylvester Stallone will come up in the conversation. So with that out of the way, I'm going to bring in my co-host. I have a brief rant, and then we'll see what he thought of the movie. All right. So yeah, let's bring in my co-host with the most, the man, the myth, the legend. Wait. The legend. Mr. Jim Chaboyko.
Cheers. Rants are never brief. They would just be swearing then, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, a good rant is got a bit of length. They agree with me.
They do. Our digital peanut gallery.
Yes.
Yeah, Jim, I don't know if is it a rant? You be the judge.
Sure.
Before we talk about this movie, I want to talk about a movie that has not been announced, but I'm sure is already in development, and that is the story of OceanGate and the OceanGate Titan and the sinking, implosion. Of course, you're familiar with the story, but for those who aren't, just a couple of years ago, a millionaire and some billionaires were explorers. Let's put some air quotes on that. Explorers, Jim, went in a untested, or I shouldn't say untested, barely tested, uncertified submarine to go visit the Titanic. And
What could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Needless to say, Jim, it did not play out for them. It was not a positive experience for these folks. And so, with that in mind, what you're now hearing is it being referred to as the Titan disaster, the OceanGate disaster. And I know there's a movie going to be made, but this was, and here is my pitch for that screenwriter out there. They have a choice. They could talk about it as a disaster. And let's be honest, Jim, what was disastrous about it? Some rich assholes, and yes, one unfortunate young man, a boy, really, an 18-year-old son of one of the rich assholes, went into an untested, uncertified plastic tube of a sub against all good advice and then died. That is not a disaster, Jim. That is a death by misadventure, a death of hubris. And I think that's the thing there is a movie, there's a fascinating story, especially about the founder whose name I cannot recall. Here, let me, you know what, Jim? I have a device.
Oh, that's not the maker of YouTube, the creator of maker,
the first
sculptor
YouTube
of YouTube.
Upload. All right. Okay, where the heck is this? Stockton Rush. There we go. There's There's number one. And it was the Titan. And yeah, death by misadventure, death by hubris. You know, what are the Greeks? Hubris and nemesis. There's a Greek tragedy here.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
But
where you're brought, like, technically, people just think tragedy means sad event.
Yeah.
But really,
No.
it's when you're specifically brought down by your own,
hubris
shortcomings.
brings nemesis.
Yeah.
You know, and I think here there is a great story, especially all the people he bulldozed. You know, I suspect there's a fair bit of lying in there, but a whole bunch of other people going along, or the people who did argue with them, the employees he sued because they were saying this was a bad idea. How dare you steal my crappy idea from me? What? I just said it was a bad idea. Anyway, yeah, so that's my thing. It's not a disaster. You know what's a disaster? What is happening in Gaza. That is a disaster, a criminal disaster. The fact that Flint, Michigan still has water because of the pipes put in there by people.
Yeah.
Disaster. Human disasters. Never mind what Trump may do to Saul if he wins again. So anyway, I don't know. Is that a rant? I think it is. What do you think? What's your...
It's a controlled rant. I mean, you've sort of not quite done the Yosemite Sam thing where you're shooting two guns and levitating, but, you know, it's that sort of, you know, but that was, a nice controlled disaster. We haven't done one of these broadcasts for a while. So, you know, it's a matter of finding your rant legs again, I guess.
I think so, but I'm kind of glad. I take everything you say as a great compliment. I'm gonna walk away counting this as a win.
Yeah.
And let's get back to the story at hand.
Certainly.
If memory serves, last when we did the live stream, I'll put a link up here. When we did the live stream talking about the Aliens franchise and franchises in general, I did cut out a time where I raved about this film. I said it was a solid see it. You got to see it. See Rebel Ridge. Jim, before we get into the spoiler zone, why don't we hear from you? Let's give it your see it or skip it. Give us your short, under 3-minute, spoiler-free review. Impossible.
See it, absolutely. It's you're getting in on the ground floor of the Aaron Pierre train, number one. It's a great star turn by him. And it's you know, as we have another movie we reference in this thumbnail for this broadcast here, there's certain notes that are the same, but there's nothing wrong with sort of a parallel project or a little bit of an update, and a little bit of a different project. It's got a few more moving parts than, say, First Blood did, but not just to compare the two. It's just a solidly made, interesting movie. And it's got some interesting beats, some weird beats, some character unveilings that we'll probably get into. They sort of hide James Cromwell for the first 90 minutes. And then it's like, you only see him in the background and you're like, hey, that's James Cromwell. Anyway, but yeah, it's a really interesting take. And I think it helps to have Aaron Pierre as the lead. I rewatched the spoiler. There is a fight scene in at least one. And I watched the climatic fight scene, and it's a mess in a good way. Like, it's a chaotic cinematic mess, and it's super. He's got so many things going on. Shoots a grenade, gives somebody some drugs, and does up a wound, and hides another person, You know, it's a great scene to watch, and there's a scene where he's just loading the shotgun. He goes clack, 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 clack,
Not
and I just
loading
thought,
it,
or
unloading it.
unloading it rather. Sorry, yeah. And he's just clack, clack, clack,
Well, that
clack through
might be
this
a
cloud
spoiler.
of smoke. And yeah, just it was like, okay, that's cool. And subsequently, apparently he's going to be some form of Green Lantern or something. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
So,
No.
yeah, see it. It's
Okay.
over 2 hours. It'll keep you
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, Jim, I think you know what? I'm excited to talk about this movie. I'm so glad you've seen it. I'm so glad you loved it. It was a solid see it for more than solid see it. I think I put a post on Threads that I think everyone who's seen it will remember this film 5 years from now. It has a heft, a stickiness in the brain, or at least it has for me. But on that note, let's jump into the spoiler zone.
Watch out, kids.
Jim, let's start. You said something. I think that's a great way to start on as we get into the spoiler zone. You're absolutely right. James Cromwell we barely see him. We know of his character much earlier in the movie, but we don't see him until we're deep in the third act.
Mm.
Or at least at the start of the third act, maybe. Now, in his defense, he is 84, so I suspect
Yeah.
why we didn't see him before. But that makes me think this film had a lot of, we don't actually see a number of people. She, one of the characters played by Anna Sophia Robb, what is her? Summer, she has a daughter. We never see her. Or only at the very end. We have or not at the very end, near the end, second half of the film. She's having her moment of, okay, what am I going to do here? I got to make a call, a moral call. Yeah, second act, end of the second act into the third.
Yeah.
But that isn't the only one. We don't see her ex-husband. Like, there are a lot of stuff that's sort of hidden from us outside of the frame. What did you, am I talking crazy? What did you think of that?
No, I think it was, I think it was a creative choice. And I think it was pared down perhaps to show how isolated these people are. They do have each other. They do have, they do have certain people they can reach out to. There's the Chinese man that that owns that sort of helps out Terry, Aaron Pierre's character. And it's kind of fascinating because the one scene where he says, yeah, he fought in the Korean War. And she goes, oh, thanks for your service. Yeah, he fought for the Chinese, for the other side. And she goes, oh, what? And right immediately she goes, well, it's great. We can work together. You know, so nice little, quiet little, nice little line delivery there. I thought was pretty good. But yeah, I think it's to show how isolated they are. His closest pre-movie contact is cousin Mike.
Yeah.
And you don't get a full shot of Mike's face or body the whole time. You see him through prison bars in a prison truck or van. And then spoiler alert, we already warned you, we see him dead on an autopsy table.
Yeah.
And so even if you could see him, he wouldn't be alive. He wouldn't be gesturing, talking, or, you know, with his eyes even open. So cousin Mike is sort of like a cipher, or he's like a shadowy figure, even though he's like, hey, that's my cousin. You know, he still manages to be a bit of a shadowy figure. And it's like the filmmakers trying to sort of conceal him a little bit, I thought.
Well, I agree with you, Jim. I'm thinking about all the people that we know of, but we don't see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like that idea of isolation. It kind of ratchets up the tension, because Terry is a man unknown to this town that he ends up in.
Yeah.
Summer is his only friend. The Summer, we know she's got an ex-husband. We know she is a member of this community, but a shunned one. even her one friend, we do understand there's a friend, a cop, maybe? Sheriff? Don't know.
Yeah.
You know, because we don't know. That's never revealed to us.
Yeah.
That makes me think of another thing. What did you think? One of the things that I enjoyed about the film was how it seemed really effective to me to ratchet up tension. I was always expecting an explosion of violence, you know, and it was like up, and then back. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't violence for its own sake, I don't think. What ultimately happens is that he's just dealing with such a, Terry is
Well,
trying to deal with
we're
this
never
corrupt.
given the violence. That's what I mean. Like it ratchets it up, and then it's like, oh, nope.
I think it just gets to a point where you can't avoid it. So it's not like it's not done with glee necessarily. It's done like to deal with the bad faith that he's been given.
Yeah.
This police department is pretending to be taking the higher, as corrupt as they are, taking a bit of a high road for a corrupt police department, but they're not really. It's all just just talking and wasting time and stuff. At one point, he almost got some of his stuff back, but not quite. And so
until they finally go, oh yeah, you know what? We want this all to reset.
Yeah.
You know,
And then even
mostly
when they
to cover up worse.
Yeah.
But
Well, even when they
let's just get rid of this guy. Here's your money. Here's a free truck.
Which is kind of a surprising turn. It's not a typical turn for an action movie when you're dealing with corrupt police officers.
Oh, it was genius.
Yeah. And so and then they're good until that deal, and then they lash out against Summer, his co-conspirator.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. And then that's that bad faith keeps saying again, he has to return to town and he's been warned not to. And that's sort of when things take off and there's really not much alternative.
Did you think forward. Like when Summer is, roofied?
Yeah.
Did you think that was something that, Chief Sandy Byrne ordered, or was that it's fascinating, this film, where there's cops of all kind of stripes in this flick.
Varying degrees of corruption.
The corrupt cops of all stripes, because every one of them's corrupt. But did you think that Sandy ordered, hey, get Summer, or was that maybe the deputy?
Steve Lan, I think, was the character name. I was just looking it up before the show.
Played by Emery Cohen. Isaac Cohen. What I don't know. What did you think? Like, I'm kind of stuck on that one.
That's a good question. It may have been a situation of plausible deniability. If he doesn't issue this kind of order, then he can say on the stand, if it ever gets to that spot, that I had nothing to do with this. Right? It's that sort of. It's almost like different cells of corruption working independently of each other. So one person doesn't ultimately get all the. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer for that. But he was the Sheriff Sheriff Byrne at the end. By the way, if I call this film,
incredibly ably played by
Don Johnson.
By Don Johnson.
Yeah. By the way, if I call this film Ruby Ridge, it's an accident. I kept on writing down Ruby Ridge. I'm like, no, that's the wrong ridge. But he seemed to let when they dosed Summer towards the end, and she's about to expire in the backseat of a cop car. The sheriff seems to be okay with not giving her any Narcan. So
as I was thinking about it, I'm now tilting towards it was always get rid of Terry, get him out of town. Just here you go, pay off, go away. He ain't coming back. He's got no reason to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Summer, who is now too close to their scam,
Mm-hmm.
might actually totally figure it out and tell someone, here's a way to get her. Because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what was it? Dose her, not necessarily to kill her, because I mean, she gets dosed,
Mm-hmm.
survives that, goes to work, and the judge already is reported. You know, and the
Mm-hmm.
corrupt judge who's trying to help her already knows. So yeah, I'm now leaning towards okay, you go take care of her. We'll get rid of this guy, and we'll fix her too. They weren't
Yeah.
out to kill anyone.
But
It only at the end where
yeah.
it's like everything's going sideways, and now
Mm-hmm.
they're like, it's about survival. Dosing her at the midpoint was about, you know, shutting someone up.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
And not somebody that was tight to the community. It's not like she had, a big family, a big wealthy family or anything. She
yeah,
was on her own. So
yeah.
it's easy
But
to
she'd
sort of
already been
push her aside. Yeah.
out. You
Yeah.
know, I think she's a member of the community, but one who has been marginalized.
Yeah.
May have
Former
been
addict,
marginalized
single
already, but
mom,
definitely you're a drug addict and, you know,
a divorced woman.
divorced drug addict.
Yeah. In a
A
Catholic state. you
yeah,
know, I'm presuming. Well, yeah, I think we
yeah.
discussed it was Louisiana because they have parishes, but
Mhm.
yeah, but yeah, and you were talking about there's a couple of other things that they don't show, as well as just to work off that earlier point, not just characters, but there's something that happened before any of us stumbled on Rebel Ridge or the town actually. And it led to some litigation which essentially financially broke the town, which is why
Yeah.
they're doing this. But they don't really, I don't think they really talk about it in much detail. And then there's the ending, and you don't even really see, like, there's not really even this is such a horrible term. It's not really even a money shot, where you
No.
where you see it sort of just happens, where a couple of cars from another law enforcement agency pull up alongside their car and they know they're safe.
Yeah.
And again, you've been spoiler alerted, folks. But yeah, so even that's done on a low key level, and then they show Terry, in the hospital, just sort of waiting for people, and he gets up and he walks around, and then it ends.
Well,
And
he rips out the hard drive
yeah,
from the thing the only proof that old Rusty, it's Rusty Byrne, right?
I
Rusty?
think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Sandy. Sorry.
Lim-
Chief
Rusty,
Sandy Byrne.
same thing.
Uh he and interesting if we take a look at the poster, Jim. Note the fire, the slow burn fire
Mm,
at the bottom.
yeah, yeah.
But even that ending, unlike, let's say, if we compare it to the ending, the very dramatic ending of First Blood
Hmm.
with, you know, Daddy General
Hmm.
coming in and, you know, he's been through a lot and, you know, walking him off of the field of battle.
Hmm.
This is always the reverse of that. This is almost like
Yeah.
well, here's the other part. If we follow it to its logical conclusion, if we see this through, what did you think though of the very ending? I watched it as I was grabbing frames to make this awesome thumbnail, I'll have
Hmm.
you know.
Yes, very good.
Shameless plug. I watched the very end and frame by frame, and it's just him in profile, breathing heavy, and just no smile, no sense of victory.
Hmm.
It's just him, deep background, doors closing. You see police doing police stuff out
Mm.
there, and him waiting.
Hmm.
What do you think story-wise is going on there? It's it's almost like there's a bit of ambiguity in it, I think,
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
lot.
Emotionally, anyways. Yeah, no. Terry will return in Rebel Ridge 2.
Man,
um,
let's not
Rebel Ridge 2, the Ridgening. No, the I don't know what you could.
notwithstanding the themes in this film and in First Blood,
Yeah,
he's now fighting insert whatever American enemy
I
of
don't.
du jour.
Yeah, I don't think Jeremy Saulnier, is that how you pronounce his last name?
Yeah.
I don't think he was going for a comparison versus First Blood. I mean, obviously it's sort of adjacent, and that but whereas First Blood is almost a purely emotional movie, this one's a little more. I mean, we're talking about vengeance and justice, and this one more sort of is towards the more, the intellectual part of I don't say intellectual, but as for lack of a better term, the intellectual side of that getting justice.
Yeah.
So when he does get it, maybe it's a box checked for him rather than a like the freeze frame
I
where his fist is in the air.
I don't know. Like, I mean, let's put a pin in that.
Mhm.
I do think, though, there are so many parallels story-wise
Mm.
to First Blood. I think this isn't the only time he's like, okay, First Blood, let's say the paragon of the modern angry man, man against the man movie.
Mhm.
I think in a lot of ways there's overlap and then there's opposition.
Mhm.
I think
or
the
or
ending,
evolution maybe.
well, well, it's, thesis, antithesis, synthesis.
Mhm.
But I think there's overlap and then there's opposition or response, call and response maybe. And I think the ending in that, although it does tie into the politic of the thing, but I think the ending, I think every moment of violence, every conflict with the cops don't behave like they do in, what was it? What's the BC town First Blood was shot in?
Hope.
Hope, thank you.
Yeah.
The Americanized Hope, that town, they don't behave that way. They're there's a lot more nuance to these police, and everyone's trying to de-escalate.
Mhm. Yeah.
Even as the tension ratchets up, because the plot's got a plot.
Mhm.
At every moment, it's almost like at every moment they're sabotaged by their own behavior, their own habits. And I'm talking about the police, the townsfolk. It's like, oh, we almost got caught here. How can we not get caught? Let's keep doing what we're doing, except this time it'll be different. We good? We good? And I think that's kind of like a response to True Blood. Even, I mean, he camps out in the woods, Terry.
Yeah.
But it seems like by choice. It's know-how, and it's cheap, and
Undercover and not public, and you
Yeah.
don't have to give your name at the front desk, and
yeah, like everything that even that is. And Jim, I chose these particular looks for the thumbnail for a reason. You see this character, it's like a response in the way he's always controlled, always going back to what you said, that intellectual aspect, like he's forever calming himself down.
Yeah.
And then Sandy responds in that way. Like he is, I mean, well, Sandy Burns a dick, just a corrupt dick. They basically figured out a way, hey, we'll just keep arresting these people, holding them, billing someone for that. It's how we're financing our town. That we're using all this money, we're stealing from people. to civil forfeiture and that. But I think it's even he is trying to, okay, I was wrong. Like, it's like, I was wrong. I lost it. And you're right. Like, who says that in this kind of movie?
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah, some really interesting choices there. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe this is we're getting a little. Is there anything else you wanted to say about the filmmaking or anything before we get into the politics of it? Little teaser, folks. Something's coming back. Something that hasn't been on the channel for a while.
Oh yeah,
Anyway.
that's right. Yeah. I'm just looking at my notes here. So I had comparing the two movies just in one word. I had retaliation versus redress. But yeah, I think in Rebel Ridge, they're comparing it to Rambo. There's actually a line where Richard Crenna's Colonel Troutman says, "You did everything to make this private war happen." So it's actually like you. And I didn't even pick up on that when I saw it as a kid. I just thought, oh, those nasty cops. But in a way, you just heard that the last of his unit died. Maybe he's spoiling for a fight. Maybe he's just pissed off with the world in general. So there's the Rambo sort of spoiling for a fight, and whereas Rebel Ridge is more seeking to find
resolution,
to solve a problem, a
Yeah.
resolution. Yeah. And believing that there's a resolution to be had.
Yeah.
That they can meet each other halfway, a little bit of a negotiation, even though it's done in bad faith on the other side. Yeah.
And even then, like, what is his interest? I
Mhm.
want to save my cousin's life.
Yeah.
And that after that happens, he isn't hell-bent on vengeance. Which I think really means that we've got to get into the meaning.
Mhm.
The meaning of this piece, the politic of this piece. And Jim, I want to bring back something we haven't done in a long time, which is the social nutrition checklist.
What? I had no notice of this. Just kidding.
Mr. Chaboyko, you had all of, an hour.
Half an hour. Yeah. No, I approve. I often think of it. Yeah, no, it's cool.
All right, folks, this is pretty straightforward. Reframe stamp, and that's really about the gender and racialized community representation above the line. And it's a point system, the Reframe Project, it's a point system, and you get so many points for a woman, and a woman of color, more points as a director or a writer. Same with a star. The idea being, accumulate so many points, you get to say you're a Reframe. You get the Reframe stamp of approval. It's literally a stamp. It would not get this. Mr. Desaulniers wrote it, directed it. The top billing star is Aaron Pierre. So no. Was it a union-made flick? Was it made with union labor? Yes, it was. So gets a check mark there. Does it pass the Bechdel test? Oh, did I screw this up? Oh, you know what? I'm using the wrong picture. Sorry, Jim.
Oh,
Yep, I
didn't even notice that till now, until you said that.
All right. Well, you know what? I can fix that in post. But did it receive the social nutrition checklist? Would it have passed the Bechdel test? No, it would not have.
No.
Not once. Not open L. That isn't to say that there weren't interesting women characters in here.
Yeah.
There were, both pro and con. One very interesting character, and I'm not talking about Summer, Anna Sophia Robb, although her character is cool and interesting, but... and then last, but certainly not least, what I used to call is class consciousness. I am now calling, and here, let me see if I can't pull up the
Yeah, sure.
proper one. I did make it, Jim.
Yeah, yeah. No, no,
Uh,
I believe you.
All right, just a
Do
sec
some
here.
tap
Just
dancing
a
or something.
second.
I should take up juggling. Wow the crowds while you're looking for files. But oh, while you're doing that, I
Yep.
just want to say a little bit of Canadian trivia is that First Blood was directed by Ted Kotcheff. Good old, he did a lot of Canadian movies. I believe he
Really?
was,
Like,
yeah, he's Canadian himself. Holy crap, he's still alive. He's 93.
Jesus.
Oh, that would be a good interview. Yeah, he
Yeah,
did
that'd be a
like
get, eh?
apprenticeship of Judy Kravitz, a couple of Mordecai Richler ones, Joshua Then and Now, Fun with Dick and Jane, Weekend at Bernie's. That was
Wow.
a few years that was his blue period when he did First Blood and the comedy about the dead guy. But yeah, no, so he's a good old Canadian actor. And the other sort of reverse Canadian connection was I always remember my friend Darren and I went to see 13 movies. That was the summer that Raiders of the Lost Ark came out. Oh, I'm dating myself. But there was a movie, a late August release, which is never a good sign. It was Victory with Michael Caine and Sylvester Stallone and Pele, and it was the that famous German prisoner of war camp soccer comedy or whatever it was. And Sylvester Stallone's character is the Canadian goalkeeper. So not, I didn't know that, the goaltender, sorry. Yeah, apparently Canadians are good at goaltending. Anyway, and then they have to play the Germans, and then that is cover for them escaping. I think something like that. But
Some BS. Some
yeah,
nonsense.
I thought it was quite interesting as a a teen or preteen or whatever I was. But yeah.
All right, here you go, folks. Here's the proper one. Already talked about the reframe stamp. That's a no. Union made. That's a yes. Bechdel test. That's a no. But the last one, and one of the reasons I hadn't done this, Jim, I'd kind of bailed out on this, is that class consciousness, it's a very academic, it's a Marxist term. It gets really specific. It's almost impossible to meet. And how do you define that? Whereas I think, plus we're not in the Soviet Union of 1984, but I think working class perspective is something I feel confident that I can make that value judgment. Everything else here is it's a yay or a nay. Bechdel test is a very straightforward, criteria. Same with
There's
union made,
measurable,
reframe
yeah.
stamp. Working class perspective. I do think though, Jim, and this is, I will now talk about why I think this deserves that as a great segue into the meaning, is this film, one of the things I found really exciting about it, well made, entertaining, all those things, it also really is saying something. And it's cooked into the story. It's not, and now I will have a 5-minute soliloquy on the travails of Black and poor people in the United States. It's like, no, I will show you. This film shows how quickly, if you are not, whether you're Black or you're a poor woman, a drug addict, somebody who's been involved in the legal system, how quickly you can be just run over by it. Basically, this film, Jim, really is about civil forfeiture and the sketchy ways American municipalities fund themselves. All wrapped up in a man versus the man flick.
Sounds like action to me.
I wonder if I can imagine it's like, I called him Desaulnier. That is not his name. Saulnier.
Saulnier.
Yeah, Saulnier. I wonder if Saulnier in his pitch went, listen, I know you've been just dying. Netflix, you've been dying. dying for a film that talks about municipal funding, tax policy, and civil forfeiture. Well, if I got a script for you.
Film opens on a town council meeting. Yeah, yeah.
But I do, and this is one of the things that gets me, why I think it's under my skin, while I'll probably remember it in 5 years, it's got a real working class perspective. It doesn't treat Summer, it doesn't treat Terry as, oh, wither the poor. If only
Yeah,
there was a
yeah.
social worker that loved them and supported them and believed in them. They both have agency.
Mhm.
That anything keeping them down is systemic. You know,
Mhm.
it's corruption that everyone knows about. You know, like Summer early in the film when he meets her and says, "Hey, there's got to be a way I can save my cousin's life."
Mhm.
And she's like, listen, he was Sandy Byrne, the chief. He was on his way out until the lawsuit about, their terrible policing, or sorry, their terribly policing. And he figured out a way. Hey, it's like, listen, you can all get no new taxes, tax cuts for everybody, and funding for all our stuff. Just let me run the police force the way I want to. They're basically like whether they're stealing money through civil forfeiture, and it may be illegal, but civil forfeiture is legalized theft from poor people. We think this is involved in drugs, this cash. Who
Yeah.
uses cash? Who carries around that much cash? Poor people do, because they don't have access to the credit facilities, the banking services that the affluent do.
Mhm.
Civil forfeiture is about stealing from poor people. The Summer, because she had a problem with drugs, all of a sudden she is criminalized and forever under supervision.
Yeah.
But at no time are they, oh, you don't know how hard I've been. It's like, no, I'm in a bind. I've got to operate within the system. And so coming back to what we were talking about before, and this image, there is the angry white man with a big ass machine gun, and his army daddy comes to bail him out of his jam. Terry knows there is no army daddy who's going to save him. He is forever, right from the get-go. Every time he is dealing with authority, he's dealing with it with restraint.
Yeah.
He's pushing them, but he never acts out. He never loses his cool, which I suspect a lot of it's every poor person, every black person, every First Nations person here. If you're any of those, you learn to say sir, because you're already on the bubble. Acting out will not move you forward, and there is no advocate for you. You can't count on the fact that the cop will go, oh, this guy's got a lawyer. They know they can tell you, they know they can say you.
Yeah.
Get in the car,
Yeah.
and oh wait, here's a for your trouble. And I think that's why this film has a working class perspective. Saulnier, not 100% sure of his background, but he's obviously treating it from that point of view with respect and understanding, not a social worker's perspective.
Yeah.
That these two, Summer and Terry, and even I don't know what is her character name, Jim? Do you remember the woman cop?
Oh yes. I can't pronounce her her actual name. I have it right here, and it is Jessica Sims. So they
Jessica
just call her
Sims,
Sims.
Johnny J. Yeah, no, I can't. So Jessica Sims, Officer Jessica Sims, she's interesting as well. She knows they're corrupt. She is party to it. And yet, what does she do at the end? She still points a gun at him. I know what side I'm on. You know, and I would say her character seems to believe, no, I know there's a lot of cops, a lot of supporters of police have well, we know there's problems, but there's always a but, even though it's piles of cash on tables.
Yeah.
It's people who go to jail regularly for the longest possible time and then just released.
It's the bad apple theory, or
yeah,
you know.
except that you're in a, you don't realize all those rotten apples have turned you rotten. You think you're not, but you are.
Yeah.
You know? And this doesn't make her like Sandy's the big villain.
Yeah.
The real nasty cop, the only one who comes close to dying, but still doesn't. Nobody dies except the poor cousin.
Yeah.
Murdered in a jail.
Yeah.
Even he doesn't die. You're like, oh, where was it going? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure where it was
Jessica
going
Sims.
Jessica Sims, her character. Yeah, she
on the cusp. I mean, she's part of the bad system.
She is. And she'd rather it's that I'll go along with it until, well, it's all going sideways. And what are they going to shoot 3 people now? Like, that's not heroism. That's, I'm not saying that the character's thinking that, but I got to admit, if the way the story played out, I would think as a citizen, it's like, no, you realize that you're going to go to jail, and this might be the way you don't go to jail as long.
Yeah.
You can turn states, you can be cooperative and maybe not go to jail at all. You know, Sandy's going to jail.
Yeah, it's an interesting
Sandy's going to jail. Even the choice, remember at the beginning where Jessica comes out from hiding. She doesn't come out standing. She doesn't get up from where she's hiding and then come out. She crawls out.
She does, yeah.
And I think that's not just that's an interesting acting choice. It's a choice. It's an actor's choice. It's a director's choice. It's an editor's choice. And I think they're doing it on purpose. She's one of those police who's internalized, or she's a working class person who's under these people's thumbs as well. She's just internalized it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was thinking at the end that, and your take is probably more realistic, is that she sort of, I realize now how corrupt they are, so thus I will work against them. But no, I think your take's a more sort of more of an accurate and world weary kind of take on it, is that she's like, oh boy, I better be on the right side of history here, or what have you, and
or at least on the right side of the courtroom. I'd rather be a witness than a defendant.
Yeah, exactly.
Now
I don't think my future in law enforcement is probably over, potentially, but
well, you never know. I mean, it happens up here in Canada, not as often, but we just don't have as many. That's why. But yeah, American police departments are always hiring the
that's true.
The corrupt from the town next door.
She looks over and sees Doctor Strange levitating and going, you have one way out. Crash that car.
And that isn't to say, like, I'm not totally down on Sims. She is the best of a bad lot.
Yeah.
But it's
in terms of cinema, it's a complicated character, which you don't always get.
Right?
So.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, another great... if this movie isn't hashtag ACAB,
Mhm.
it pretty much, if it is for all intents and purposes, it may not say it, but you could if I found out Mr. Saulnier was an hashtag ACAB guy, it'd be, oh really? That's so shocking.
Maybe
Not.
acabaganda is the acabaganda is the opposite of propaganda, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah,
But,
exactly. Well, but that's one of the great things about this film, and one of the great things about its politic, its meaning, is its nuance. These police aren't all bastards. They're, heck, most of them would probably be okay as neighbors. Like, they're not evil. They're not the mustache twirling,
well,
yeah,
and perhaps best personified in
you know,
Evan Marston, who's played by David Denman, Roy from The
yes,
Office, Pam's ex-boyfriend from The Office, there, who actually shows a little bit of he's probably knee deep in it, but he shows some compassion anyway towards the end, and it might even have been the summer source on the inside.
may have been, right? It's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, mind you, he had no problem. Like, because he was the only cop on the scene at the very beginning in what is the most unrealistic wait what moment of the movie, the only wait what unrealistic moment of the movie, IMO, was the beginning of a guy with earbuds in blasting Number of the Beast.
Yeah.
Riding his bicycle down the center of the road. A million people involved in active transportation have watched that movie and went, oh, he was dead long before the cop just nudged him off. That guy was run over by some soccer mom with 3 kids in the back, and she didn't even stop because she didn't even notice she ran him over.
Yeah, yeah.
Other than that, though, it was his character, Denman, Evan Marston. He's the one who nudged him over. He's the one who, get on the ground.
Yeah.
The making up the story about, well, we caught, that automatic lying that a lot of police are just so practiced in. That immediate, I saw him doing this. They couch everything they've observed as a crime so that when they're defending themselves, when they're explaining their terrible behavior, it's all, well, this is where I observed him. This is the law I observed him breaking. This is what I was immediately suspicious of. You mean the black guy on a bicycle?
Yeah, exactly.
But
You're
everything is couched that way so that when in the inquest, as one cop told me, everything's the inquest back. In the inquest, you've got your story straight.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and further to that point that you said earlier is that the people, whether they're, former addicts or what have you, they're sort of perpetually on the hook and have to deal with it. Like, some of our protagonists here. Not only is that true, but it's that it's so easily accessible to the oppressors, for lack of a better term. Again, is that they know how to play it. They know how to play the system. They know how to run it. They know how to, back people against the wall and that sort of thing. Another note here. I found my notes on my phone. I forgot I had them because I watched this a while ago. Starts with Iron Maiden, right?
Yeah.
And they've also got, and that's the bonus of watching something. I think I had the subtitles on because I was missing a few lines there. But it identifies the music. So they also had Bad Brains, which is a classic black, like very heavy rock group that a lot of the young folk are finding today. So they're like chronically underappreciated classic group. And also Neko Case for the more more recent alternative types. I used my birding app to identify the common yellow throat, house finch, and Wilson's warbler, which are all endemic to the area. So, so no loons in the desert like in Conan. There you avoid that. You avoid that. So,
no, that's
100% bird score.
Great note.
Yes.
on
I
that
was
note,
very
first
happy.
of all, folks, I think I'll shamelessly beg y'all for a like, a subscribe, and let's not forget to ringy ding that bell.
Oh, that's my cue. I was thinking of birds.
You had birds on the brain. Bird
I do.
brain. Well, wait a second. I have an effect.
Bad bird brains. Is it? There we go.
All right. Jim, I could talk all night about this film.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've got way more to say about it, but you know, we all have lives.
Yeah.
Let's get into final thoughts. And
Sure.
oh wait, you know what? Final thoughts. And I'll put it over to you, Mr. Chaboyko.
Yeah, no, just it's actually an interesting exercise to go back and watch First Blood. And it's interesting to watch them consecutively. I watched Ridge first, and then afterwards I watched First Blood. But no, Rebel Ridge is a hell of a watch. It's done really well. I don't know what, I think it's in the top 10 of watch times for Netflix, if I remember my charts with Dan charts correctly. But yeah, no, just a really solid movie. A lot of working parts. And it's, yeah, it was just, I really quite enjoyed it. There's a couple lines here, and I know it's gotten criticism. There's a couple things I did want to bring up, is that they say, well, ultimately, the climax, the cavalry comes to save them. Well, yeah, sure, but that kind of happens in First Blood too, in a way. Like, there's a truce at the end, right? There's
Daddy Army.
Yeah. Colonel
colonel,
Troutman.
or
How's he
whatever
just
the
a
hell.
colonel? Like, wouldn't he be like a higher rank? But anyway,
well, because he's remember, it's all part of some secret,
Oh, yeah.
special forces, Green Beret.
Yeah. I was looking for quotes earlier, and I did a search for Rambo quotes, and it was like, Rambo points bazooka at Soviet tank. I'm like, what movie is this? And it turned out to be the third movie, so I was mistaken. But so it got criticized for a few things. One is that, somebody came to his rescue. Big deal. They downplay it. Another, there's a couple of goofy lines. I'm not, it has to be like, it's almost like comedy, where you have to not be afraid to fail. At one point they said, it's going to be a very dark night. And I think the response was, isn't that what knights do? And so a lot of people say, bad line, but whatever, And another time there was a little bit of a meta moment where sort of one of the more gentle younger law enforcement guys, a la David Caruso in First Blood, but this guy's in Rebel Ridge. He's been sort of shanghaied by Terry, and then Terry's giving a message back, and he goes, did I put too much sauce on that? And I thought that was such a great, it was self-aware, and it was funny and kind of charming, but not like wugga wugga. And I thought that perfectly.
Yeah,
and it's got a little bit of that
rim shot, not going
not
for
playing for the rim shot, but it's got a little bit of that swagger that, amongst the other things I'm worried about, is how my message is getting across, but whatever. What did you think? And that it's such a great little line. So yeah, there's a lot of neat stuff in here, a lot of interesting interesting things going on, ideas, lines, and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a good watch.
And even forever, like, these movies have certain expectations, right? Big showdown, gotta have the big showdown. They give us that, but not in the way we're expecting. Even right up to the point where it's like, what are they worried? Oh my God, he's going for the money. As he pulls the back wall of the jail out, that it's forever setting up and then subverting or the tropes of this kind of movie. And
Yeah.
I think that's never mind the politics. That's just great storytelling, right? To kind of, I know what you guys are thinking, and it's going to kind of look like that, but we're going to give you something a little different. Yeah, I cannot speak well enough this film. I think I'm going to put it right up there for again that Netflix or that kind of range of films, like, really destined for streamers.
Hmm.
They'll have some time in the theater, but they're destined for streaming. This is right up there with Emily the Criminal, another one that kind of is under my skin, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the cavalry coming in, for what have you? Sorry, have you never seen a movie? It's like, at times, our fellow critics, professional or amateurs, keeners like ourselves,
Yeah.
at times it's like, you're really reaching, buddy. Like, what really
Yeah.
bugs you about this movie? It's to pull in the politics one more time. There are people right now going, I don't know enough about Kamala, whatever pronunciation they put on it. I don't know enough about Kamala Harris. There are many legitimate reasons to not support Kamala Harris, but I don't know enough about her. You are making that, you are saying that because you don't like her and you don't want to say really why, which is, let's be honest, bigoted and sexist, bigoted, sexist. That's why. And I don't know enough is just a great excuse. It's just a great indefense, like a defendable, impossible to prove otherwise, will never be met. I just didn't know enough about her. It's like, well, you worked hard to avoid knowing anything about her. How that relates to this film, Jim, and what you said is, yeah, the cavalry at the end, I don't like this movie, but I don't have a legitimate reason.
Yeah.
Cavalry at the end. And it wasn't even that. Like, literally, you look at the main poster, the main ending, the big set piece of First Blood, and it's like the whole army is there. It's everybody's there. The Park Service, the this, the that.
Yeah.
Off.
Yeah.
Well,
what? Here's a old timey spoiler. If you haven't seen Stagecoach 1939 yet, I'll get 3, 2, 1. John Wayne literally gets saved by literally the cavalry.
Yeah. Well, mind you,
at the end,
at least in Stagecoach's defense,
it is a Western.
and it's constant. They're forever talking about the cavalry.
Yeah.
And where they are, where they're stationed, why they aren't where they should be.
It's kind all of a about thing, though.
But yeah, you're absolutely right.
You're a small group, and you're looking for the bigger group to give you a little bit of, backup. I mean, you can mention a million movies that way.
And really, if you're going there instead of, again, like the only truly ridiculous part of this film was at the very beginning. Again, what person who actually rides a bicycle, and it's set up that he's a keener. It's an expensive bike. He doesn't, it's
no helmet.
Well, the helmet, I mean, there are a lot of people in that community that can debate that, but it's the simple fact. It's like, he wouldn't be riding down the middle of the road with earbuds in, blasting metal. No.
Maybe this movie is really about the failure of Louisiana to establish bike lanes on a municipal basis.
Yeah.
This one man needed a bike lane. He didn't get it. And the rest of them paid.
Couldn't hear it over. It was so loud that he couldn't hear the siren.
Well, it is Iron Maiden. Pretty good song. But,
oh, it is. But Yeah, those sirens are designed. There's a reason we hear them
Yes. Yes.
blocks
Exactly.
and blocks and blocks away,
Yeah.
which is yet again one more reason to like and subscribe. And of course, ringy ding that bell. And once again, Jim mixes his cue.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was just thinking about movies now. I'm like, what could I cut as a? I'm actually doing the work right now.
All right.
I see the monkey eating peanuts in my head.
Goodbye,
here, but
everybody.
Anyway, good night.